Hi and welcome to AXSChat. Today we've got Kevin Ruh with us. Kevin is obviously somewhat related to Deborah. He's the son, and he also works for Deborah as the Chief Marketing Officer for Ruh Global. So, Kevin, welcome. Glad to have you here. You're with us every week for the Twitter chats, but it's the first time you've been on there on the video chat. And we're going to be talking about siblings of people with disabilities. So I think obviously you're the brother to Sara, and so you can speak from experience. So welcome, Kevin.
Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate being featured. It's an awesome honor, and yeah, I enjoy the conversation every week, and it's great to, speak a little more. And as you said, Sara is my sister, so this topic, yeah, is very personal, but I think that it'll be a good one because, yeah, it just some of the unique positions that I guess siblings of people with disabilities can bring will be, a great topic of conversation for those who understand and are siblings and those who aren't too, or who are being introduced.
So before I let Antonio in with a question, I've got a question. Who was more instrumental in bringing you into the world of disability inclusion, your mum or your sister, or were you captured in a pincer movement?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was younger, it was definitely Sara. And then as I got older, my mother was always working. She began to work more in that in the disability accessibility realm, and that's when I would see it more. And I've always known from a young age that I wanted to do something helping people. That's always been my career direction. So I think that so far, I've done that, and now I think we're doing good work too. So that's why, I'm on board.
Excellent. Antonio, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. How is it to be the younger brother?
It's great. So I don't know how much she likes it sometimes. There's a height difference, and I'm a little bit taller, so people love to assume, oh, you're the older brother. And that just incites her. But it's been good. We're very close in age, so when we were growing up, we actually were in the same grade and graduated at the same time. And that was partially because we moved when we were first starting grade school from a different state, and the years were thrown off. So even though she was older and I was a little bit younger, we were grouped in the same grade.
There's always I'm older than my brother, so the older brother always tends somehow to protect the younger brother from external events and even from other kids. And how was that relation with you, Sara, and all the environment around yourselves?
I think it's a similar thing, and you're right. The older sibling usually does feel that too, and I'm sure she feels it a lot, to protect me. But yeah, and there are times that sometimes I felt she was more vulnerable, and I took on the more like commanding role, and the age didn't really matter. It's more about protecting your loved one. But there haven't been a lot of situations where that's happened. The headstrongness of like youth and middle school and stuff like that, comes back to mind. But and she's an adult now and lives independently, with my parents out at their house, and she holds a job and stuff. So we have more of a friend as well as sibling role now. It's I think I like our dynamic, but siblings are siblings.
And actually, yesterday was National Sibling Day, so we've chosen our timing well. Deborah, you have another question?
I do have a question, and needless to say, I'm very proud of Kevin. And it was interesting when we realized that Sara had Down syndrome. Sara was 4 months old, and which is unusual. Usually you find out that your child has Down syndrome at birth or before birth. And so I remember when we realized that Sara had Down syndrome, I was like, all right, what can I do? And I was like driven to make her life good. And about 7 months, when Sarah was 7 months old, I realized I was pregnant. And so Kevin was a surprise, but also he added so much value to our lives, because having, as Kevin said, two children so close in age, it was hard, but there was also great benefits. And so it was interesting watching Kevin and Sarah grow up. And I worried, for example, that Sarah might get bullied in middle school, but she actually got bullied a lot less than Kevin and the other kids. So kids were bullying each other, but Sarah really didn't get bullied quite as much as, you know, Kevin and some of their friends. And so, but when I really started noticing, and Sarah started noticing the difference, was when Kevin got his driver's license, when Kevin went away to college, when Kevin moved out of the house. And that's when Sarah started really understanding the differences. And it's been very interesting from Sarah's perspective, but also Kevin's. And of course, at some point, you know, Sarah will go and, you know, probably live with Kevin if something happens to my husband and I. So I think siblings, it's a part of the stakeholders I think often are not included. And I think, you know, I did my best as a mother, certainly, but did Kevin get as much attention from my husband and I as like Sarah did? So I think there's all these dynamics that happen. And I think sometimes, as I've mentioned before, when I first started in this field, people are like, yeah, you're a parent, you don't need to speak for us. And sometimes at the beginning I felt unwelcome to the conversations. So I could imagine siblings probably even less so are sometimes welcomed into the conversations. So I think it's a really, really important topic, and I am glad that Kevin, you know, stepped in to talk about it. I'll tell you also, because I've been in this field for so long, one thing that happened that I don't know if Kevin wants to talk a little bit about was Kevin would babysit other kids with disabilities, and I remember he babysat for years with a family that had two children with autism, and he was still in high school. And what Kevin got to learn about babies in general and toddlers, not to mention toddlers with special needs, I think it really helped him understand the realities of maybe, you know, having children. So it's so far he's 27 years old, and I'm not a grandmother, but it's just he's gotten really thrown into this. And I also am hoping that Kevin might talk a little bit about, in the middle school there was a dance, and the boys were on one side of the room, the girls were on the other, and it sort of wasn't that much fun for Kevin. And then a couple of days later we went to a dance of adults with different disabilities, and everybody was dancing and having a blast. And Kevin's like, you know, Mom, I like that dance much better than the other dance. So Kevin, I don't know if you want to, you know, explore any of those topics.
Yeah. I was the dances that you were talking about, you know, the differences obviously would be like, you know, the middle school, all the girls on one side and all the boys on the other side, and then the dances that we would go to with Sarah for, you know, the Hanover ARC Association, and they put on events, you know, for holidays and stuff, and get together, you know, all kinds of different people with special needs and people who volunteer. It's a great thing, but it's so much different, you know. There's no judgment, there's no inhibition, there's just, everybody gets out and dances, you know. It's like, this is fun, this is great music, we're dancing, you know. And teaching, Sarah has taught me so much diversity in my life, I think, just because you get to see people, and as you were saying, I've worked with people with children with autism and disabilities professionally a lot, but most of my other experience with adults with disabilities or special needs would be through personal, you know, through my sister and the network of people that she knows, and it's been great though. Yeah.
I think that Deborah touched on something that I think is probably quite an important dynamic, and that is the whole thing about the amount of attention that you necessarily get as the non-disabled sibling. Obviously, the demands on the parents are naturally going to be greater as they try and make the best for life for their disabled child. And obviously, the dynamic that you have with Sarah is a good one, but I do wonder how many other siblings harbor some kind of resentment about the fact that they don't get the attention that they feel that they necessarily deserve, and how conflicted they feel about that because they know why it's happening, and how that can play out in relationships. I think that you could probably put some people on the psychiatrist's couch and spend a good deal of money psychoanalyzing. But I'm quite interested in that dynamic. I think that it's one that obviously has its sort of dangers, but on the plus side, then you've got the reverse of that, which is the siblings are able to support each other and do it in a way that is maybe less embarrassing for the sibling with the disability, because it's not mum and dad helicoptering above, the whole helicopter parent thing where parents are in control, they're always present, and as you reach your teenage years, that must become somewhat more embarrassing. I mean, I've seen it equally with the babysitting thing. I babysat for 3 brothers with ADHD. I have no kids. I don't know whether that's related. But the babysitting, I earn my money. I earn my money.
But yeah, it's so true, and you can paint a picture of a life that's very happy, but every day is different. And Sarah and I we've had it out. We've screamed and cried plenty of times at each other. But it's the whole family thing too. You come back to that usually, and it's you're brought together, and you can't really pick your family. And I've also seen through the network of people that Sarah has known through the years, we've seen other siblings, and I've seen just parents and siblings who really do struggle, and it's not. Every day is not going to be perfect, and life is tough. But it's the love, I think, that overcomes it all, and that's where we can kind of find the real lessons from it all. And yeah, Sarah and I squabble, and even now, we'll butt heads when I go to visit. Sometimes she's a person like anybody else. She gets in her moods. We're both intense people. I think our whole family is that way, but I think it's good too. It helps us to really get out there and be outgoing, help spread the word. But yeah, life is going to be conflicted like that, and loving any of your family, there's back and forth of that,
No, when we are kids and we were in school, there's always relationships between kids. We play. Sometimes we are even a little bit aggressive with each other in the way in relation to how we look, in the way how we behave, or even the way how we dress, and that relates to situations of bullying. How did you relate to that in the way when you were growing up with Sara at school and in the environment around you? And not finishing my question here, how that relate to even to today?
I think that the whole bullying thing is very interesting, and the dynamic that Sarah taught me from it is very interesting too, because personally it happened to me, and I've always been, I guess, weird, and I've always had long hair and looked like a weirdo. So growing up and trying to express myself doesn't, sometimes people don't always see eye to eye. I was bullied at times, so it's tough to deal with, and I would take it really personally and get hurt, and I would see my sister get bullied, and it's just, that's the way it is. I think people have to work out those kind of dynamics. It's a teaching thing, but it really, you know, the way that she would deal with it was never to internalize. It was always with a positive, like, oh, whatever, you know, she could just brush past. And Sarah's positivity, like, it really just, it made me sit back and question, like, how can I even, she's overcome some stuff, you know, and I've been through it, and she's just, you know, happy to, just happy for every moment. And it's like, okay, I can't, you start to look at yourself and go, and that's the thing about, like, the parents too, it's like, you start to feel selfish when you notice that she's getting more attention or X, or, you know, I get my driver's license and I'm like really excited and I am like, yeah, I just got it. And Sarah's going, well, I got mine too, you know, and she didn't get her license, but my parents are like, oh, Sarah, that's so cool. And I saw immediately, you know, it's like, okay, there's the one road of, how dare she? And of course, Sarah's not doing it for that reaction from me. She's coping, and I had to, you know, sit back and go, oh, well, this isn't about me. This is about Sarah, you know. And it's not that big a deal. And I know my parents love me, and they've said it so much that it's never a question. And, you know, I don't know, I guess a supportive parent network is really good too, because not only them, but other parents of special needs children that they knew and would, you know, play dates and just meeting up and like social gatherings would be, I don't know, other parents became like my parents. And I think that some parents would look at me too and be like, their kid's really awesome, and it's awesome to, you know, not to toot my own horn and say, oh, they thought I was great, but I think that just, and, you know, the getting to know each other, I don't know, I'm sure other children, of course, you know, get to know each other through networks of friends and parents like that, and still, but something about in the special needs world in our town, you know, in our county, was very tight-knit, and it was just like everybody kind of knew each other, and it was a very good mutual relationship for almost everybody, I think. But, you know, I know that there are some places where you don't get that, but that's an important aspect to, I guess, inclusion, the entire inclusion mindset, you know, is, you know, people growing up and learning and seeing others and that empathetic side of, yeah. I'm sorry, but go on. Did anybody else have a question? I feel like I'm just monologuing.
No, you're bringing up some really good points. You know, Kevin, I know that one thing that I really liked whenever Kevin and Sarah were in elementary school, we had a guidance counselor, and she said to me, because to be honest, I'd never thought about it, but she said, you know, I have a sibling support group for siblings at our elementary school that have siblings with disabilities, and she said, their life experiences are going to be, you know, a little different than somebody that doesn't have, you know, a sibling with a disability. And especially somebody like Kevin, that it has his sister with a disability in the school and all that stuff. So it was, and so she did courses with them. They had a little club. Kevin was able to interact with other siblings that also had siblings with disabilities. So then we continued, like as Kevin said, to build upon the community. But I've seen many siblings in my work that have done amazing things because they have siblings with disabilities. They've created assistive technology, they've created these really cool apps, they're working in the field. Kevin went to VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, and got an art degree. He's, as he said, very artistic. I know that he's displaying a band logo on his shirt right now. I always forget the name of the band. What's the name of that band, Kevin?
One of them is Venom and the other is Curse, but I made them into pockets because the shirt had no pockets. So
the artist did them.
Crafty.
The tattoos. That's okay. He's 27 years old. He doesn't need to ask his mother's permission for these things. But it really is interesting, a lot of times as people talk about why they're in this space. often they'll say, you know, I have a sibling or an older or a younger sibling. So I think that's very fascinating. But one thing that I noticed just around a lot of the siblings, including Kevin that I've met, they seem to grow up a little bit more evolved. They understand. One thing that Kevin got very quickly was diversity. We always had a diverse group of friends. We had people with and without disabilities, people of different religious backgrounds, people with different, all kind of different perspectives. So I found that Kevin in some ways was a little bit more mature than some of his peers that didn't have to deal with some of the things that our family was dealing with, having a special needs family member. And as Kevin said, Sara added great value to, and continues to add great value to our family, but the way Sara processes information, sometimes we have to think, okay, she's processing. It's like we are still sometimes making our way through as we figure this out. And so I've really encouraged Kevin to speak from the voice of a sibling, because I think there is things that you have to consider. For example, Kevin has a long-term girlfriend, Emily Ha, who also works with us, and we love her. And, you know, we've had to sit down and talk as family about, you know, Kevin's chances of are actually a higher percentage of chances of having, you know, a child with a disability because he has a sister with Down syndrome. So you have to have conversations like that, which typically you're not going to have those kind of conversations. Or, you know, does this mean someday that maybe Sara will live with us, and what does that mean? And once again, Kevin was saying, you know, with Sara, Kevin's like, I've got my driver's license, yay. And then Sara's like, I've got my driver's license too. And us trying to help Sara not feel bad about who she is, but celebrate Kevin's victories. It's sometimes, I guess life is always about balance anyway, but Kevin, I don't know if you want to address, I'm sort of I'm dialoguing like you are, but you know, what role do you think that siblings have to play in this space?
Like you said, it's a diverse. They can offer a lot of stuff, you know. I'm trying to think of a good way to put it, but I guess for, you know, others, like as you were saying, are less evolved, and I think what to speak to that is when I was younger, I kind of just, you're right, I was introduced to things that maybe you don't get introduced to as, you know, someone who doesn't have a sibling with a disability. You wouldn't see until much later. Yeah, and I remember, you know, interactions with people from a young age that, you know, were, you know, from an objective standpoint, probably pretty quirky and strange. But, you know, I just look back on it and I'm like, oh yeah, well, of course I know these people, and this is just the way they are. And that's the thing, like, looking at my life is hard for me to say it's been so unique because of my sibling with a disability, because it's just been my life. And anybody who has a sibling with a disability would probably feel the same way. Anybody who has a sibling has so many of the same stories and experiences shared, I'm sure. And it crosses so many boundaries, but it's family life, and, you know, it's relationships with people, whether they're blood relatives or not, are the way we relate to others. And it's important for us to go on.
So no, I think that before I let you finish, and I'll leave you to close, Deborah, is I just thought that the points about growing up quick are especially pertinent. Yeah, you're going to have to, because you're seeing stuff that most kids don't see. You're party to conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have, and I think that does shape you as an individual. I think it hopefully gives you that kind of perspective on life and society, that you're going to want to do something good, which you You know, obviously that's the chosen career path, and
For me, yeah.
and me too. I've always had an interest. Didn't expect it to be my career path. Came to a bit later in life, but absolutely, I value the work and the community, and I think that the community is actually, for the most part, a very welcoming one, where people are accepting of each other, and you can have a lot of fun and enjoyment, which you don't necessarily see in a more fractured and fragmented society at large, which I think is gratifying, and so I think that's one of the upsides of being a sibling, and of also working in the industry that we work in. So I'll leave it to Deborah to close and say thank you now.
And you know, one thing that I just wanted to briefly talk about is, you know, as our last question, Kevin, I know that it's interesting because someone like Sara, you know, Sara was born with Down syndrome, and it's a very visible disability, and and a lot of Kevin's friends had ADHD. You know, you mentioned ADHD, and you know, and some of his friends were, you know, on the autism spectrum. One of Kevin's very, very close friends that he grew up with, who this friend really struggled in school, really, really struggled academically. This friend has a heart of gold, but as he became, as he got older, he actually got diagnosed with schizophrenia and is really, really struggling with severe mental health issues, and has tried to, so, you know, sort of help his moods and stuff by, you know, getting into drugs, and it's been a really rough path for this young man that Kevin grew up with. And so, you know, sometimes we don't even realize that our friends have disabilities. You know, sometimes they're invisible disabilities. So, Kevin, I don't know if you wanted to, you know, speak to that, and, you know, we can go ahead and wrap up the chat today. But I know that was, when that diagnosis came, it was profound for me, and also not that surprising for me as well.
Well, and as you said, it's the invisible disabilities is a really it's an abstract topic to grasp, and it's possibly a little bit easier for me because I have known people who have, you know, visible disabilities, and I guess my sister would be the first, you know, my first introduction. Sara, you know, has a disability. She's visibly a little bit different, you know, I guess. And then, but from there, she has been in class and, you know, known people through her school network of friends, and, you know, people that she's been close to in organizations and all that, who you know, they have invisible disabilities. And I've been able to grasp that because I understand that a disability isn't something as simple as a person in a wheelchair, you know? And that the diagnosis that you're talking about was tough to deal with for everybody. And I'm sure, not especially him, you know, he had the toughest time dealing with that himself. But, and as you said, is it, you know, oh, it sort of explains, and it does, of course, he was struggling with so much, you know, and it does start to, you know, it's a helpful thing to diagnose at times, stuff like that, because it's like, oh, so that's why I'm feeling this way. This is why I've been struggling with such things. And it's really good to come to terms with that kind of thing too. So that was, you know, one aspect, but just learning about disabilities in this way helped a lot. But it's not, you know, I guess it's partially up to siblings to help others to realize, you know, look at me. This is something, you know, that's just as normal as anything else. I mean, what is normal? There is no normal. Life is life, and this is just an aspect of life. And if I can help people understand that, you know, I guess that's part of my, you know, mission, is to help people understand. But it's, you know, it's as simple as that. You don't understand something until you start to really care and start to listen. And that's what I have always tried to do. And that's what I learned from a young age too. You listen to people and they'll help you understand. And, you know, special needs, sometimes it makes it harder for them to communicate, but that just means you have to listen more and, you know, strive even harder to understand. And if we do try to understand others like that, then, you know, that's a mutual respect thing, and we'll all grow from there.
After all, it's basically, we don't expect to be perfect, but we expect to learn along the way with the journey. Yeah.
To grow, exactly.
Great. So thank you very much, Kevin. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Look forward to being with you on Twitter tomorrow night.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.